Welcome back. You're watching Checkpoint. Back to our guests here. We're discussing the revenue standoff. Coming at a time when the Senate has already sat 7 times, looking to do it again on Tuesday. Majority Leader of the Senate, Irungu Kangata, remaining hopeful that perhaps this time they will be able to reach a consensus. But we are seeing senators still continue to split hairs, defying party loyalty and regional loyalty. And perhaps one of the big questions now is the dynamics that we are witnessing at the Senate, Dr. Witt, because this is something we spoke about earlier, on senators likely rearranging themselves. Do you think it's a principal issue, or are we looking at a bigger political picture here?
I think this is kind of political brinksmanship, grandstanding, and of course the calculus for 2022 cannot be discounted from this dynamic. I think part of the reason is that everybody perceives the president as being lamed at, and therefore he has very few or limited political tools or sanction on senators and politicians who are in his backyard, or say Jubilee, for instance. So everybody is beginning to set their sights onto 2022, and of course the deputy president, the Raila ODM dynamic, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, all of these are in play. And I think this is unfortunate because this brinksmanship, this grandstanding hurts development process, hurts planning, and delays service delivery at the county level. So I think what we need, as we said before, is we need political leadership. The president has to step up to the plate. The experts have done what they should do. CRA has basically created a basis for dividing for revenue sharing. All of the parameters are very clear. What we need now is political direction, and the president has to whip his side of the house to basically align with where the government wants to go.
When we say the president should step up and say whip his side, to align and say this is the direction the government is meant to take, this has taken this long, and there's a lot of silence from the presidency. What then does it say, one, on legacy issues, two, what's the bigger vision for devolution in this country?
I think the bigger, as Ms. Kikonyo said earlier, the country is committed to devolution. The president, in his 2 terms now, heading towards the end of his 2 terms, has not shown any signs of kind of going back on those commitments that we made in the constitutional dispensation. I think what is now at stake is the political risk that he faces, the humiliation potentially that will come from senators and politicians, MPs who think that he's a lame-duck president. So I think there's a political calculus on his side, kind of wait and see, watch, try and steward this in a careful way. So I think even as we speak, there's a lot of backroom, behind the scenes conversations and consultations to try and build consensus. I think at the end of the day, we're very reasonable people. We understand that the amount of resources we have is finite, the development agenda is very large, and we've got to start somewhere. But as I said, the president needs to hold a conference with the governors and the Senate leaders and parliamentary leaders to basically come to a consensus on this. We cannot just go out grandstanding and start to use forums outside Parliament and the Senate to polarize the country. We need sober conversations about how we need to move forward, based on priorities that link back to Vision 2030, but also link back to the president's Big 4 agenda. We've got to create these things together in harmony and move the country forward.
Wanjiro, what has this meant for the counties? They are already cash-strapped. We are seeing the stalemate at the Senate perhaps will continue. What has this meant for the devolved units? And do you agree with Dr. Witi that ours is a leadership issue at this point?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kisa. And I must say, I don't agree with Alex on the issue of political will. I think the problem we are facing actually stems from the lack of political will. Actually, the contestation going on in the Senate this time is due to the fight that was unresolved last year, because there's this figure of 316, which is about 17% of the revenue generated nationally, which means national government is holding about 83% of the revenue generated nationally. And the question becomes, what is national government doing with its money? When counties are supposed to deliver water, agriculture, health, they're supposed to provide electricity, they've got basic urban services that they're supposed to deliver. What we are seeing playing out in Senate is senators who are sitting there and thinking, how do I go and tell my people that the county lost money? Ask the question, when the formula changed, because this is the third formula. There was a first formula, there was a second formula, because the Constitution anticipated that there would be a learning period. So the first formula was enacted, then a second formula, and at each change, counties lost, because inevitably somebody will lose, somebody will gain, because you're changing the data. This year, or this new formula is using 2019 data. Before we were on 2009 data. So poverty statistics, population statistics have all changed, as well as the objects, criteria, and then the proposals of the formula. So all this had to change. But why did Senate not have a standoff before? It's because the amount that counties were getting in the division of revenue was growing. Since last year, this amount has been falling comparative to what government is collecting, and comparative and based on inflation. So, for instance, Akisa, all of us here earn a salary or an income of one sort. If our income remains fixed year on out and year out, within 3 years, we are actually poorer, because the cost of everything has gone up. So not only are counties losing, but then the total quantum available to all counties is falling in inflation terms. So the elephant in the room, and you know, Senate is going to have to accept, they either go back to the president and tell him, cut non-essential spending, because right now we have a COVID crisis.
Right.
We really can't afford not to have money going down to the counties, because counties are charged with health provision. Counties are dealing with water provision. Counties are dealing with livelihoods, because you have a lot of informal workers. You know, 82% of Kenyans work in the informal sector. So counties are facing this. They need the money. But if you look at the 2020 budget, the national government is continuing. They've given a stimulus, but that stimulus is such a minuscule percent of the budget. And then national government continues with its development projects as though COVID is a small thing that can be wished away. Most countries, and if you've listened to David D., if you've listened to other economists, they say you go into wartime economics, you go into stabilization economics, you stop unnecessary infrastructure, you say, where does the money need to go to cushion lives? But the problem is the national government, president, flagship projects, big four agenda, so-called Vision 2030 projects, because some of those are very questionable, being implemented questionably, such as the SGR. These projects have become, are being implemented for political mileage, but also because there are contracts and deals and interests associated with them at the expense of lives.
Right.
And that's what is causing the fight in the Senate. Now, if the Senate doesn't resolve it, then, we might need to seek redress from the courts.
All right.
And a recent ruling indicated that the failure to enact the laws that pertain to county money can lead to dissolution of the House. And the president said it. He warned the Senate and he told them, accept this amount, sort it out quickly, or you may be dissolved. But it's very ironic. And of the president, because he's the one.
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you for the solutions, but you've mentioned that, so I'd let Dr. Awiti to give us his closing remarks on where then do the solutions lie. On Tuesday, when we go back on, or when we take a look at what the Senate will do, what do you expect to see as we wind up?
I think, thanks, Gikonyo, for those points. I think my basic concern is that we need to be very clear about what it is that we're putting money behind, especially with devolution. I think the basic overarching agenda for devolution was service delivery at the grassroots, to have those decisions on services, on critical elements that build the economic capability of those societies, especially water, sanitation, education at the agriculture, health, and especially basic education when you come to pre-primary, preschool education. But I think from where I sit, it's been very difficult to figure out how accountable governments have been. Headcount poverty has not even budged an inch. Some of the very critical health outcomes haven't changed. Maternal mortality, infant mortality, vaccination rates haven't changed. I think penetration of water and services to our societies haven't changed. So I think we need to really go back at a national level to figure out the performance of the counties and where the bottlenecks are, especially in terms of capacity for delivery. But one of the things that we also have to realize is that the economy has not done very well over the period of last year, for instance. So if you're talking about increasing the allocation to counties, that has to be kind of taken into the context of the economic and fiscal environment that we face today. So I think that there are many other allocations, the conditional allocations that government extends to counties. For instance, we have allocations that come to support health services where those capabilities exist, especially to level 5. We have allocations that we make as a proportion of some of the loans that we receive from the World Bank, from the NIDA, and all the bilateral support. So I think that the pot of money, the 316 billion they were talking about, is just a part of the bigger revenue structure that goes back to the counties. We have about 30 and 23 billion that come from other sources directly as conditional transfers to the counties. So I think the bigger question really is, one is fiscal accountability, but also a much more concerted approach for organized systematic planning around which then we hold counties to certain milestones on delivery. Because I think for the most part, this is an open check. You know, when you look at even Senate capacity for oversight in terms of county spending, we haven't really gotten there. But these are baby steps. Devolution is still very early in the day. It's just less than 10 years. So we're learning in the process. But I think the bigger conversation about how much revenue is transferred to the counties has to be held. But then against what is that revenue being spent on? How do I get the bang on the buck that we transfer back to the counties?
All right, I'll give you 1 minute. We have to wind up, but I'll let you really quickly react to that, Wanjiru, in under a minute, please.
Right. The Constitution requires that money is transferred to county governments for service delivery. This is a constitutional obligation, and that's the principle of fiscal devolution. Accountability applies to both the national and the county government, and we have accountability problems on both ends. But as Kenyans, we continue to pay taxes, even though the national government is very corrupt. Now, if there's a problem with the economy, I believe it is driven also by the indebtedness due to the lack of political accountability of the national government.
We're out of time.
So I think, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
We don't have enough time to exhaust the issue, but the problem starts with the national government, as far as I'm concerned.
We'll get another forum to continue with this conversation, seeing as it is still a matter of huge public interest. Wanjiru Gekonyo is Executive Director, the Institute for Social Accountability, TISA, and Dr. Alex Awiti, Vice Provost at the Aga Khan University, just helping us dissect